Uriah Hall has announced his retirement from professional fighting. For someone who first competed in the UFC back in 2013 in the Ultimate Fighter Team Jones vs Team Sun finale, Hall could very well be labeled a veteran of the sport. Welcome to the channel everyone, and in this video I'm going to be briefly discussing Uriah Hall's run in the UFC, his biggest highlights in the company, and the fights that I feel we could have witnessed if Hall hadn't announced his retirement. So Uriah Hall has been part of the UFC roster for almost a decade. If you consider that Ultimate Fighter finale, then Hall's first UFC fight was a loss to Kelvin Gastelum. But of course, if you choose not to consider that Gastelum fight, then Hall's first UFC fight was against John Howard in 2013 as well, a fight that Hall actually ended up losing, so he definitely didn't get off to the best of starts in the UFC. But at UFC 168, Hall marked his first victory with a TKO win over Chris Leben, which was of course Leben's retirement fight. So we could pretty much consider that as a major accomplishment for Hall, as he managed to secure such a crucial win in the early stages of his career. Then of course, over the years he went on to beat the likes of Thiago Santos, Gegard Mousasi, and a few other prominent names here and there. But if you would ask for my opinion, it wasn't until 2020 Hall actually secured the biggest win of his career when he beat Anderson Silva during the pandemic era. And coincidentally, this was also Silva's last fight in the UFC. So yeah, maybe you could just go ahead and label Uriah Hall as the quote-unquote legend killer of the UFC, much like Randy Orton was back in the day in WWE. But nevertheless, in my opinion, I 100% think that Hall's biggest UFC win was over Anderson Silva, arguably the greatest middleweight champion of all time, and for Hall to secure a win over the Spider while he was on his way out of the UFC must have been a big honor for him. Following that win, another fight that could have been a highlight performance in Hall's career was his win over Chris Weidman, another former middleweight champion, but as we all saw, that freak accident at UFC 261. So of course, that victory doesn't really seem valid. And to close off his UFC career, Hall lost to both Sean Strickland and Andre Muniz, whom he lost to at UFC 276, both fights via decision. Muniz, in my opinion, is a dark horse in the present-day UFC middleweight division. I think he's very talented and could potentially go a long way. He currently finds himself sitting at number 10 in the division as well, so yeah. So just to round it off, if you look at Uriah Hall, he honestly never really found himself in contention to challenge for the middleweight title. What I do think best suited him in this middleweight division was being the gatekeeper of this division, something that I feel Derek Brunson has done pretty well over the years. So I would kind of put Uriah Hall on that same pedestal as Derek Brunson, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way by any means. What I do mean is that guys like Hall are definitely capable of beating the likes of, Brad Tavares or even Sean Strickland, who is currently in the top 10 in the middleweight division. And by losing to guys like Hall or Brunson, these up-and-coming contenders might end up in a vulnerable position in their respective divisions. So now getting down to the fights that I would have liked to see Uriah Hall compete in while he was active in the UFC. One fight that I felt would have been really interesting was between Darren Till and Uriah Hall. Hall had been calling out Till for a fight for quite some time, however it never happened, and eventually Hall has now gone on to retire. I feel that if Till made the necessary changes and adjustments to his fighting style after his loss to Brunson, him versus Hall would have been a very exciting fight. Another fight that I would have been interested in was a potential rematch between Uriah Hall and Kelvin Gastelum. Now, I'm not entirely sure, but I do think that there were some talks of a potential rematch actually being discussed, but of course, another fight that never got booked in the first place to begin with. And lastly, I think this would have been a typical UFC matchmaking fight, a fight between Uriah Hall and Chris Curtis. Chris, as we know, is on the rise in the UFC's middleweight division, but as Jack Hermansson proved, he obviously has a long way to go before he's ready for a top contender. So a fight against someone like Uriah Hall could have been the make or break fight that Chris Curtis would have needed. I mean, if he beat Hall, then yes, he's definitely someone who could be a big star in this middleweight division in the coming years. But if he doesn't beat Hall, then obviously he would have to lower his level of competition for the time being. But yeah, nonetheless, a big congratulations to Uriah Hall on his amazing career, wishing him the best. And he actually did mention in his Instagram post that he was stepping away from the sport, so maybe we could see a return on the cards down the road, because we never really saw a retirement mention in that post, I believe. But yeah, that's it for this video. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed this one, and hit the subscribe button as well. It will be really helpful for me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.